Hey guys, Spencer here. Well, you can't see me today, right? But today I have a very interesting topic, right, that I'd like to talk about, right? So actually, tomorrow morning, right, early morning, I'll be flying off to the US and Canada for 1 month, right? So before that, I thought I want to address, one of the questions that I get asked quite a lot, right? Which is, out of all the hundreds, right, of books that I read over the years, which is my favorite, right, or top favorite, to recommend, right? Or if you say, you're a complete beginner, right? How do you, which book should you start with, right? So today I'm just going to recommend some of the books, right? So these are some of the books from my personal bookshelf, right? At least this is the trading section, trading and investment section, right? So there are actually a lot more, right, that I've read from the library and returned it, right? But these are some that I chose to keep. Okay, so I'll go straight into it, right? So if you say you are completely newbie, right? I'll actually recommend this first book, right? Technical Analysis of the Financial Markets by John Murphy, right? So this is a lot of people say that it's like the textbook, right, of technical analysis, right? So it's very good for beginner book, right? I think it's only a couple hundred pages, right? So easily done in less than a month. Right, next, so this book actually covers a lot of all the fundamentals, basics, ranging from like candlesticks to indicators to the philosophy, the principles of technical analysis, a bit of risk management as well, right? So I'll say it's a pretty comprehensive book. Next, we have another classic here, right, which is the Technical Analysis of Stock Trends, right, the 9th edition. So this one has to do a lot with like classical technical analysis, right? So a lot of like drawing trend lines, support, resistance, chart patterns, right? This is the book. This is another textbook, right? So usually it's either this by Martin, Technical Analysis Explained, right, by Martin J. Pring. It's either this book, right, or this book, right? But personally, I find this one like easier to read, right, than this one, right? So you can just read this, right? Maybe this, right? And then as we go on, I also have some books on like investments, right? So this is a bit more of the investment, the Warren Buffett kind of books, right? I have an Intelligent Investor somewhere as well, right? So these are like books by this book, right, by Jesse Livermore, right? This is pretty good on talking about like trading psychology, right? A lot of like the psychology, the structure of the markets, right? So quite an interesting insights. And right, then if you want to look more about like a price action, support, resistance, right? This is a pretty good book, right? This is Naked Forex, right? Trading without indicators, right? So for those of you who don't like to use indicators like me, right, you can explore that. If you want to do to a bit more advanced, right, you have like trading with intermarket analysis, right, by John Murphy. So this talks a lot about the different relationships between the asset classes in the different markets, right? How they are tied to each other. For example, like the currencies, bonds, stocks, commodities, right? How they are all tied together, right? For those of you who like, to learn more about like value investing, right? This is the real deal, right? This is the textbook. This is what they used to teach the analysts, in universities. Right, this is the real deal, right? Is you find that valuation is not as simple as just projecting spreadsheets, right? It's a lot more than that, right? So if you are keen to know about real value investing, right, this is the book to read, right? So it talks about investing not just like stocks, right, but also a lot of like a bit on like properties, right, businesses, fixed income instruments as well. Okay, so this is another classic book, right? Trading for a living, right? So if this one talks a lot about like building a trading system, right? Applying different time frames. I'll say it's more useful, in knowing like how do you combine different tools and techniques, right, to form a trading system, right? Because a lot of these books like this and this, right? They are more like technique based, right? So it's not so much of, you sort of learn the individual tools, but it doesn't talk much about how to like put them together into a trading system, right? Next, right, is if you are keen to explore more on the advanced art of price action, right? This is some of the most comprehensive books, right? So like reading Price Charts Bar by Bar by Al Brooks, right? That is a really tough book to read, right? He actually split out into 3 more books, right? Which goes into further detail about price action, right? For those of you who are like doing intraday trading, right? There's the Forex price action scalping, right, by Bob Volman, right, and also understanding price actions, right, 5-minute time frame, right. So these are some of like my favorite books, right. Of course, it will take you a while to read, right, but there's really no hurry in reading. Okay, so before I end, I would also like to share some interesting insights, right, about reading. Okay, so the first thing is that actually I'm going to share 3 important insights, right. So the first is that you must read very widely, right. So even if you are keen, right, to learn about trading, investing, right, there's actually no harm reading really widely, right, because besides learning the different techniques, right, you also want to learn about like psychology, the philosophy, the principles of the market, economics, right. So for me personally, I read really widely, right. For example, I have other books, right, like on self-help, motivation, right. I have like storybooks as well, right. Already a lot of books, right, on many different random topics, right, which I read about, right, like more fiction, right, as well as like really random books, right, on philosophy, right, psychology, right, as well as like businesses, right. So it's always good, right, to read as widely as possible, right, because you never know how you can synthesize the different knowledge together. Okay, and the next thing, right, the next point, well, the first point is to read widely, right, and the second point, right, may sound a bit like a contradiction, right, because the second point is actually to read selectively, right. So the thing about selective reading is that because there are so many books around, right, you don't want to waste your time, just reading any random book, right. So you want to make sure that your time is well spent, right, by reading only the best books, right. So when you want to learn about trading, it's best, you can do a bit of research online, Google, find out which are the best of the best books, right. So for example, like the top 10 books of trading, so that if you only have time to read 10 books, right, make sure you're reading the best 10 books, right, not some books that are not written by obscure authors, right. So generally the better books are the ones that are written by either famous authors, right, or they are already come highly recommended, right, or they have been around in the library or in the marketplace for like more than 10 years, right. So these are some of the classics, right, which you should be reading, right. And another useful rule, right, which I found is that you can look at based on the title of the book, right. Generally, the more gimmicky the title, the less legit it tends to be, right. There's just a general rule of thumb, because if you notice all these titles, right, like technical analysis of financial markets, right, it sounds really boring, right, but there's a way that the textbooks titles are written. Okay, so the second point is to read selectively. Make sure you read the best books, right. And the third point, right, is to read faster and read more, right. So the thing about reading is that a lot of people also ask me, how do you read so many books, right. And the thing is to read fast, right. So that is another whole new topic, right. Maybe if I have time, I will share a bit more about learning to read fast, right. But it's definitely a skill that you want to pick up, right. You can actually go in Google, find out how to read faster, right, because the faster you read, the more books, right, you can read, right, in the same amount of time, right. So that really saves you time. And lastly, right, the key thing is after reading, right, you definitely need to apply the language, apply the knowledge, right, because a lot of books they tend to be contradictory, right? For example, this author may suggest something, another author may suggest something else, right? So the best is actually to really go and test it out, apply it, right, and see what works, what doesn't work, right? If not, if you just rely a lot on knowledge and theory, right, you'll find that in reality when you try to apply this, the results might be quite different, right? So a lot, after reading hundreds of books, right, I had to spend a couple of years, just really trading and testing out before I realized that a lot of things in the books are, may or may not be correct or may not be applicable. It might have been, it might have worked maybe 50 years ago when the author wrote the book, but it doesn't work now, right? Or it may only work in a specific market, say like the US market, but it's not really applicable to the local context, right? So the important thing is really to apply, test it out, and see what works and what doesn't work. Right. So with that, I hope that you all will enjoy, you'll be able to have some useful, insights, right, as to what books to read, and so you can actually spend the next month, really reading up, right? Because I think that reading is one of the best way to acquire knowledge and to start learning, right? Especially if you don't want to spend any money, right? This is one of the cheapest, right, most affordable way to gain a lot of knowledge really quickly. Right, so with that, right, I will continue more updates when I'm overseas, right? So I wish you all the best. See you.